So, speaking of U.S. senators, we have Idaho senators back $95 billion aid package amid national security debate. This comes by several sources. Idaho's U.S. Senators Jim Risch and Mike Crapo have recently cast their votes in favor of a substantial national security supplemental funding package, which has passed the Senate with a 70-29 vote. This $95.3 billion aid package is set with significant allocations for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. The passage of this bill comes after intense negotiations and political divisions, particularly concerning the U.S.'s role in foreign conflicts. The Idaho senators have emphasized that while the U.S. cannot police the world or engage in every conflict, it is crucial to support allies during these dangerous global times. They acknowledge that the legislation isn't exactly what they would have drafted, but assert it is a strong bill that enhances the safety of Idaho and the nation. This stance comes amidst a backdrop of Republican opposition, with party members arguing that domestic issues should take precedence over foreign aid. The funding package aims to defend Israel, counter China's and Russia's advances, and fund more U.S. military manufacturing capabilities. It also includes investments in America's energy independence and measures that are aimed at combating the global drug trade. As the bill now heads to the House, where opposition to further aid for Ukraine is firm among many Republicans, the future of this aid package hangs in the balance. The outcome will affect not only the international geopolitical landscape, but also the local and national economic interests of Idaho and the United States.
Which, yeah, this has been a bit of a hot topic. I heard some people that are originally like, well, at least our senators didn't vote yes on that big Ukraine spending bill thing. No, they did. They did vote yes for it, which generally, I like Mike Crapo from what I've seen. I don't agree with all of his stuff because, welcome to Washington. We just talked about that. Crapo seems to be really solid. And to go with that bit there, I have the links down here for their actual statements. And originally, reading it here briefly, Crapo, here's his statement for why he originally was not going to vote for it. The quote, "The president and the Senate Democrats would argue to include necessary reforms to ensure the president will close our borders to illegal entry. On his first day in office, President Biden blew open the southern border by using executive authority to rescind a number of successful Trump administration policies. This crisis is a direct result of this action. For him to suggest he cannot reverse course immediately and secure our border using the same authority is irresponsible and misleading. I cannot support the border proposal until it is fixed, including explicit reform requirement for blah, 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 closing legal border. To date, President Biden has failed to demonstrate his administration implement, enforce, and uphold the law regarding border security." So his original thing is no, I'm not going to vote yes on it because it doesn't do stuff with the border. Awesome. Crapo doing what I like. But here, we talked about it briefly. I also have a link to that. It'll be in the show notes below of their argument for why. Basically, like we talked about, recapping their argument is that we need to stand with those people to defend them, specifically Israel. We need to stop China, which I think a lot of conservatives believe in. Then there's the Russia thing. We don't quite believe as much on that. Their exact wording is halt, quote, "halt Russia from once again expanding its adversarial empire," end quote. Kind of a little bit of a Cold War type of speakage there. They also, and we'll get into it later, I have it in the discussion notes, there was a part in the package that aims to re-energize, end quote, some of the military manufacturing capabilities and different stuff in the United States, and plus some drug-related things. And also one thing, which I'll have to dig into it, and we may all have to, making some more investments in nuclear research, which I guess good. But all in all, we have a breakdown here for me and John to go through. I would say there's bits of honey in here, but it's not worth the pain with this bill, and something that you all, as their constituents, should be aware of, because I think a lot of us think the federal government needs to stop spending, and both, not one and then the other. No, both of your Idaho senators voted for this.
I didn't know that. I guess that shows how out of touch I am with politics, but that is rather disappointing that our senators did that.
Which, one element I would encourage everyone out there as we go through this that I've tried to train in my life, and it might be a useful resource, and it doesn't take too long. If there's like a national conversation about X, Y, or Z bill that gets passed, right, try to train yourself to like then be like, okay, did my senator vote for that? And then go look it up real quick. I've tried to do that more, and it's been really, really helpful. It's a super easy, like, mind, trick or something to get yourself kind of involved and ready for election season, I guess, when that comes around.
Yeah, no, that's a thing that I will definitely have to do more of here in the future is see what our local guys are doing.
Federal.
Well, yeah, but what our local guys are doing at the federal level. I guess that's what I meant.
Oh, okay.
What our local U.S. representatives. That's a terrible way of wording that, but I worded it that way. So there you go. Yeah, I'll have to do that in the future because I very much disagree with a lot of the funding package that we've got. I understand some of the points they're making with some of the things that our senators are saying, but I disagree vehemently with them.
I mean, you can always find honey in a bill. I remember someone quoting
Exactly.
that. There's always goodies in there, but that doesn't justify the whole stinking thing.
Right.
Which, there you go. That don't get John started on his omnibus rant. It's something to behold. But before he catches us on that, kind of just a quick breakdown because I know I think most of us have heard. So number one thing, support for Ukraine, $60.06 billion to go to Ukraine. For context, which would include military aid, economic, humanitarian assistance, and other support measures. That part kind of bugs me because that's like, oh yeah, and for whatever we didn't think of, we're going to write a blank check. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the second one, which I know we're all kind of a little bit more happy about, but anything. $14.1 billion, which would include strengthening Israel's defense capabilities, particularly in the missile defense system and replenishing Department of Defense DoD stocks to support Israel. The other one after that, we're going in kind of rescinding order of the pain. Humanitarian assistance, $9.15 billion. You might ask, what do you mean humanitarian assistance? Well, provide food, water, and shadow medical care and other essential services to civilians in conflict zones such as Gaza, the West Bank, and Ukraine. So, there was that top part for Israel and Ukraine, but we decided we're going to take another $9 billion and we're going to tack it on there again. And if you think I'm making this all up, in the link in the descriptions, this is coming from the committee. This is what got approved out of committee. Then you have support in Indo-Pacific, which is behind that humanitarian assistance. Kind of got to look at that. So China took you kind of like the ingredient list, 1, 2, 3, 4th on the ingredient list to find funding against China. For $4.83 billion, support for key regional partners. Couldn't you just say Taiwan? Like, the Chinese Communist Party is not going to come after you, Congress or House. Just put Taiwan there. And deter aggression by Chinese government.
We have an aversion to saying that word.
Taiwan.
Yeah, we don't believe that.
And then there's operations in U.S. Central Command. This is the part that they were talking about our senators. $2.44 billion to support operations that address combat expenditures related to conflicts in the Red Sea. Now, this is a part I had a hard time verifying. This is from the source that I found for this, and other things kept citing the White House. So take it with a grain of salt. The White House definitely has all of its marbles.
True shaman and namana depressor.
Yes. Yes. But that part of the funding in this package for the U.S. military would be that, hey, we're sending all this aid to Ukraine, right? And X amount of dollars. And so the reason this bill is so large is that we're also spending money so that when we give this weaponry to Ukraine, we're then refilling our reserves that we depleted by giving stuff to Ukraine. That's the bit that I've heard people arguing for why Risch and them voted for it. That it's like, well, we gave all this money to Ukraine, so we had to spend all this money so we wouldn't have anything in our big boom boom stick chest. I wasn't able to verify that. If someone else can find that, and I would be so thankful for that, to verify that beyond the White House. I wish the White House was enough, but it's not. And put that down in the description wherever you're watching this. That would be a big help because I was not able to. But that's something to, I guess, kind of look for, I guess, if you're going to want to double check me on that. Then there's also, here again, support for displaced Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians make it in here again at $481 million to continue supporting Ukraine's displaced after the war. So Ukrainians, there's the war thingy, and they come here, and then we spend another $481 million on them. So we didn't spend enough on their country. We're going to spend more when they're here. Then second to last, nonprofit security grant program, $400 million to help nonprofits and places of worship make security enhancements. Basically, it's a bunch of grants that are involved for like places of worship and educational kind of places in areas of high risk for shooter things, for like metal detectors and things.
Mm-hmm.
You can go look that up. I didn't want to spend too much time on that because that wasn't the point that they were arguing for Jim Risch and them, and I wanted to focus on Idaho things, but that's something to look at. And the last one is Fentanyl Eradication and Narcotics Defense, or FEND Act. Basically, it's in the bill. It's on the committee page when it comes out of committee, but I can't find anywhere how much funding that's getting. I can't. It's there in the funding thing, but it doesn't tell you how much money it's getting. So it's almost like, okay, we're going to do all these things. We're going to fund a bunch of Ukrainians. We're going to give you Republicans some stuff with China and your military stuff because we know you Republicans like your, guns, which we do. And then we're going to do something for like your churches and stuff so you won't get shot up type of thing. And then we're going to do something about the fentanyl crisis you're talking about, but we won't specify what we're going to do about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the rundown that I had reading through that bill. If I'm incorrect, please comment down below or tweet me or something, and maybe next episode we can make a correction. Anywho, now I guess me and John going through our discussion on that more so.
Yeah, I feel like we already discussed.
Right, but yeah. Anywho, that's an overview of the chaos, which is that bill. I am very hopeful with the new House Speaker that it won't make it through the House. I think any smart Republican politician should know that this is a wedge issue. Biden really, really, really badly wants money for Ukraine. And then we as Republicans say, if you want that, you've got to give us something other than pieces of dust. Not saying that, what is it, $400 million from nonprofits, that's going to disappear in the bureaucracy of it. That's not helpful. Republican lawmakers, the number one thing right now is the border. And I think it's a wonderful thing, especially for the House, and I hope they stand firm, the small margin of Republicans there, to say no. This has to be included. If you want your money, you're going to have to play ball with us as well. And that's why we have two different branches of government, because then you have this. People might call it dysfunctional. I just say it's a progression of our society and culture right now. If you think your Congress is divided, just look at your society. It's divided. It's a mirror.
So the other funny thing with this bill, and you brought it up right there, is the partisanship of it all. This bill started as the border security bill, and once the House decided that a border security bill that only gave funding to foreign countries didn't make sense, then the Senate quickly changed the border security bill to a give money to foreign countries bill. And it just makes me laugh how quickly that change happened, because it was like overnight that everyone agreed, no, we're not going to vote for that bill because it gives money to foreign aids and it doesn't actually do what it's supposed to. And then the next day they were like, you know what, you're right. We're just going to get rid of the help for our border, and we're going to rename it to the let's give money to everybody else bill. And I'm looking at that going, did you completely miss the point here? Like, you missed the boat. You didn't, you don't. So dumb.
Yeah. Lots of frustrations here. But I guess this was kind of expected with the Senate, because the Senate lately. But there's hope left in the House so far. I mean, I know some people dislike him. There's arguments, but I think the current House Speaker has done a really good job of standing firm on some key positions, specifically this one. This was one of his primary things going into it. True. And I think he's done a great job thus far. This will be a real test of it. If he can herd a bunch of cats, which we call Republicans, to stay in line, if he can achieve that with this, I think he's got a very good future going forward. But this is going to be a real test for that House leadership, and also to see how squishy Republicans are in the House. But something to be aware of. That was the main reason I wanted to bring up and bring a little discussion on it, that yes, both your Idaho Senate representatives voted yes on that bill that we're all very frustrated about. So you might want to reach out to them and keep that a note for election season if you feel that's the hill you want to die on.